Well, hello there. You have just discovered another episode of Austin Tech Connect. My name is Thom Singer, and I am with the Austin Technology Council, and I have now been producing this show for 2.5 years. We have had the opportunity to interview people from large companies, small companies, everything in between. And the focus of this is to introduce you, the people of the Austin tech scene and beyond, to some cool entrepreneurs who are doing cool things, who are making things happen, and business leaders who are impacting Austin. One of the things I always say is real leaders show up, and today's guest is someone who I see showing up all over town in a very good way and always having something positive to say. Our guest today is Cyril Allgeier. Hey, Cyril, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Thomas. It's a delight to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So for those of you who don't know Cyril, he provides software teams as a service, and he has a company that actually helps build custom software, making sure that your company is building what is needed, keeping institutional knowledge, all while saving money and time and making really good things happen in your company. He's lived here in Austin for 9 years. He was born and raised in Houston, but we won't hold that against him. So,
correct.
Cyril, let's just jump into today's interview. Let's go back in that Wayback Machine to, when you get out of college. What did you do? You told me before we started that you did not go to law school after almost going to law school. So you took a left turn from not going to law school. What did you do from there?
So when I graduated undergraduate, it was during the beginnings of the recession in 2008. So I knew I was entering a work climate that was going to be atypical. I had a mother who was a chief financial officer of a bank who was very, very clear with me about there weren't a whole lot of opportunities for new hires. I had to start thinking and acting differently. So I decided that I was going to take my degree in restaurant, hotel, institutional management as a part of the Humanities and Business School and just go into work. And I got a job for Compass Group, which at the time was the largest hospitality company in the world. I was given the illustrious task of fixing Halliburton's vending machine. So this is someone who went to business school and has now been given $1 million vending amusement account to fix. I worked 1 year straight learning every skill possible to learn about negotiations, to learn about how to do customer service, how to do just basic things, because frankly, I couldn't trust what I was seeing because I had been my dad, to back up a little bit, had been in the vending business and I knew what a vending operation meant. And unfortunately, this company had just gotten it wrong with their customer and they didn't see why. And it was going to cost them a $40 million custodian / food service / corporate dining contract because they had all the Halliburton campuses in Houston and Texas were all Compass Group with URS and all their satellite companies. This vending was going to cost them that $40 million contract. So they gave me 6 months to fix it as a new graduate. I did it and did so well that actually for the first time in the account's history, they were able to turn over a commission check to Halliburton in 6 months.
Nice.
In doing that, I learned very quickly that the best way to be of value to those that are putting you in positions to fail is to succeed and to demonstrate how you can teach others to do so when you're gone. So I quickly convinced my vice president that I needed to train my replacement because I was too expensive to keep in that role, and that I would need to do bigger and better things with that company in order to stay. He disagreed, so I left and became someone who was more inclined to working with companies who understood the value of work. And what I did is I found my way into enterprise rent-a-car, believe it or not. I actually started out in enterprise rent-a-car as a car sales rental agent and quickly realized that the future that I wanted was one that was heavily reliant on communication, and one that relied on my ability to communicate very complex ideas and systems to those who didn't necessarily want to hear it. And the perfect analogy for that is you trying to not buy damage waiver when you're at a rental car kiosk. I became one of Houston's #1 agents for selling that stuff and quickly got out of rental and into car sales and realized that business to business was where I needed to be. Love serving customers, but business problems are far more appealing to me because it's 4D chess with real consequences and real lives. And just it makes so much of what we do every day more impactful. And like what you said, the people that show up, and part of the reason I show up is because I believe that the only way to be able to have a voice is to show up and to be present, to be active and to learn and to share your knowledge with others. So I show up to events all the time, say to be a resource.
It's interesting because so many people tell me, I can't get a seat at the table. And I'm like, first of all, it's not one table. There's a lot of tables. And second of all, if you sit around waiting for somebody to ask you to pull a seat up to the table, you're going to be waiting a long time. Find the right tables and build your own chair and pull it up. So I think that is a key thing for success here in Austin and everywhere.
No, agreed. Your willingness to be present and to be a resource is half the battle. If you, and I'm not talking to the money, I'm just talking about if you have an idea, a thought, a referral, a connection that could benefit somebody, or just news or information. You see, I traded news and information more than I traded anything. It's because I'm trying to get a temperature for how people are interpreting the world around them, not just for technology and innovation, but for business climate and for economic understanding of this business climate and the general feeling of the zeitgeist that we inhabit. Truly, the only real value that I, as someone who's leading an organization, has to my customers as the person not doing all the work myself, is to be that resource for them to accomplish their goals and their ambitions. That's all I can do. So we don't believe in being customer-centric. We believe in acquisition-centric, or acquisition of what you want to.
So after enterprise, you decided you want to go into the B2B world. What was the next step?
Mm-hmm. I actually, again, just to illustrate your point, there's many different tables and so many different seats. I actually created my own role within enterprise. I got into car sales and created a small little division within that company that I wound up training others to do. I created a small bridge between car sales and fleet management, where fleet management couldn't serve customers that were 20 or less vehicles. Car sales could work with anyone under the sun. So I created a program where I would pay the car sales folks, or the fleet management folks from enterprise, a spiff, a thank you, a referral, a small modest fee for just sending an email introduction to me from someone they couldn't serve. And in turn, I would try to take that account and run with it. Well, that very quickly became a very profitable arm for me, where I wasn't having to do cold calls every day anymore. I wasn't having to drum up business in car sales. I was trying to have I was having different problems. I was having too many meetings. I was having too many things. So I had to build different processes. And that's what led me down this independent sort of minded of, well, wait a minute. If I can just solve the problems directly, I don't have to wait on the finance team. I can just be the finance team. So I just streamlined the operation into a solo shop of, I could be your one-man leasing agent. And I just did it under the enterprise banner. And that's what allowed me to really understand how people are actually using debt as leverage in mezzanine finance, and how people are going up the ladder and understanding how to push and pull things with credit, and understanding how people are actually scaling their businesses outside of bootstrap, opened my eyes into a whole new world of possibilities that allowed me to see exactly how business is done, regardless of the niche, regardless of the sector. This is the wonderful thing that I like to tell tech folks. At the end of the day, your goal is to be a real estate holding company. The tech is great. Your software is great. I know it is, but Meta is a real estate holding company. So is Google, and so is Apple. Where they hold their real estate dictates where they hold their IP, where they hold their business model, where they hold everything. So your whole goal as a software company shouldn't just be to make great technology and solve their problems, which is, yes, you should. But you want to get to a point where you can also be one of those real estate holding companies. So you have to think about the totality of your service offering, the totality of your company, the wholeness of your company, not just the part that got you.
So one of the things I love at getting to interview so many interesting people in our tech community is hearing their backgrounds, right? So not everybody has a background where, they start off in hospitality, end up in cars, and then
wind up in tech.
And then end up in tech. So how did you go from there to tech?
A willingness to be an idiot in a room is the short answer.
Well, that's the story of my life. So that's okay.
Yeah, genuinely. I threw myself at the mercy of the court. I started showing up to events and learning from other entrepreneurs, people that understood these systems way better than me, that could teach me something about what they were doing. And I in turn could teach them about something that I had done, or a particular strategy or methodology that worked well in cars, heavy equipment, whatever industry I was in. And that trading of resources allowed me to start to acquire some knowledge, some understanding in some areas and some niches that have led me towards tech. Why I love tech as a sector, frankly, is it's not about your background. As you and I have just pointed out, no one cares. It's what can you do and can you execute? That's ultimately the best meritocracy that I want to be a part of, and that's why I stay.
So let's talk about your company now. Tell us about it.
Mm-hmm. CodingIT is as you said, a software teams as a service provider. We work with a lot of mid-sized firms to build scalable technology solutions that they can in turn commercialize, or most of the companies who get a lot of value of us are trying to spin off a new BDU or reposition a product in a new industry, or maybe pursue a new segment with a software solution. We happen to have some expertise on our team that's excellent at that. Why we do that is, frankly, I'm a big believer in businesses owning their wake. All of us create wake just by existing. Credit cards, you name it. Cell phones, you name it. Businesses are no different. The difference is businesses, just like consumers, that information is kind of weaponized against you. And unfortunately, that involves a lot of your trade secrets. That involves a lot of things that you think and you should protect are really close to the best, right? You being a customer of a CRM is great. Salesforce is wonderful. HubSpot is wonderful. They have wonderful tools, but at the end of the day, they are selling you a product and a service. That data is not yours. You're leasing it back from them. I'm a big fan of people owning their data. I'm a big fan of businesses owning their data. I'm a big fan of businesses taking agency in their development journey and not just hoping their industry innovates in their direction. Because frankly, if you're just waiting for someone to innovate in a way that you think is prudent, you may get lucky, but let's be honest. You can wish and hope in one hand and do something else in the other, and the other one's probably going to fill up first. So I believe in working with the owners who get that. I believe in working with the companies who are looking to take technology and use it as a linchpin for their next iteration of business. Those are the ones that we actually tend to work with. Those are the ones who get the most out of what we do, and those are the ones who tend to be the happiest customers. Is they're looking for value exchange long term and building solutions that can change not just their business but their industry.
So, but I still like that transition. I mean, what got you into saying, I can start this, I can do this?
I keep leaning on this word idiot because I think you honestly have to be. Because if you knew how much work it was going to genuinely take, you wouldn't start. You have to be a bit of a fool to convince yourself that some of your ideas are worth pursuing. And I'm okay with being the fool.
So how long has the company been around now?
4 years. We've been very fortunate that we've both Pablo and I have had some exits in tech. So we know exactly how we want to build this company. It's just making sure we align with the right sorts of projects, the right sorts of clients that will allow us to have the stability to do that. And we've been very fortunate to achieve that.
So, 4 years ago, things were booming along quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We're maybe having a little bit more of a bumpy road in tech right now. Not too bad, but a little bit. But your space, being third-party developers, your space is really crowded. I mean, just looking at Austin alone, much less looking at the planet as your customer base. I can think offhand. I could name 10 companies in Austin that are doing that, and I don't know everybody. So, it's a pretty crowded space. How do you start the business and stand out in a space like that?
Man, that is an excellent question. I think it has to, first and foremost, is you have to know your audience. Who is your ideal client and why? What are you giving them that's going to be of value and why? What is the benefit they receive by trusting you and why? If you don't have good answers for those things, why would you ever start? So dealing with the saturation problem, I think, has to start with who is their customer versus who is my customer. Because you're right. If I'm looking at this from just a sheer numbers standpoint as a blue ocean, yeah, the numbers are overwhelming. But the truth is, I'm not for everybody and everyone's not for me. So who are the ones that I want to work with and do they want to work with me? It's ultimately the problem I'm solving for. We just happen to be really good at resonating with the types of projects that we want to work with. So in answer to your question, yeah, it is super, super saturated. I would argue that I occupy one of the more saturated industries or niches that one could. We've been able to grow and to gain a foothold and to have the success we've had in the short time we've had it strictly because our willingness to be different, our willingness to exceed expectations, our commitment to quality, and our commitment to understanding that a resource is a resource always, not just when the transaction or the invoice is sent. And so we believe that when we put our team members in a project, they are there to infer all their expertise upon that project when needed, not just check the boxes in this statement of work and get it done and ship it.
So how big is the team now? How many people do you have on staff? How many contractors? I mean, this is a business that goes up and down with the trends.
Yeah.
How are you structured and how are you making it work?
That's a fantastic question. So we're structured a little bit differently, but in terms of how we're laid out, we've got 39 full-time engineers. Everyone's a full-time employee. We don't hire contractors for that sort of stuff. For certain services that we don't have a whole lot of need for, we will contract out because that's a smart thing to do. But almost everything we do is self-performed. We're going to be at roughly 49 to 52 in headcount by the end of the year for engineering talent. We're able to know this because we get letters of intent. And we understand what these projects are, what the funding is behind them that we're aligning ourselves with, so we know how to ramp up. We also have approached this business to be a lot more of a partnership and a lot more of a collaboration with our clients than a traditional scope-based project, and I'll elaborate on that. Typically, Tom, and what I'm sure you've seen is people will do some sort of scope-based project or estimate. They'll take it to a third-party developer like me, say, hey, these are the things that we want to build. How much would it cost to build it? And they'll give you some sort of estimate that could be right or it could be not right. And then you agree to move forward or not. We flip that service model on its head. And this is how we're able to be a little bit different. We wanted to look at this problem not in the sense of what is the ultimate thing that we're achieving, but what's the business use case behind this? Like, what are you trying to achieve? But why that? What are you wanting to do with this long term? Not after we're done. And by deeply understanding that business use case, we can create a very compelling point of, well, it sounds like you're wanting this to be something that's a little bit bigger than this, progressive web application that you mentioned in this feature doc that you sent us to quote. It sounds like that there's a business behind this that is actually going to be reliant upon this information. So shouldn't we just think through the entirety of this workflow, not just this segment of the workflow or this segment of the time? And usually by the time we start to have these sorts of conversations, it's very evident that we're not trying to get in their pockets. We're trying to get in their heads and understand what are the ultimate problems that they're trying to solve with this solution. And how can we give them not just that solution, but a better way of imagining their business moving forward and incorporating custom software stacks as a part of that and using that data in a way that can give them those insights long term. So we do that by, instead of going on scope based, we go on hours basis. So you tell us your budget, and we're going to build a team that's highly specialized and going to ramp up and ramp down around your ability to pay for it. Simple as that. I'm not trying to check boxes on your RFP or your feature sheet. I don't care about the features you want to build. Genuinely, I don't. They're cool. That you need them. You have to have them. But what I care about is what you're solving for and why. So if I can put team members on your team that understand your problem, probably as good or better than you might, depending on the competency of the team members that we're dealing with or on the other side. If I can give you a team member that has been on the other side of the door that you're trying to walk through, and that they can coach you through that process and help you make the best decisions for your particular use case. Am I a third-party developer?
I mean, technically.
That's how we've approached it. So how we can be different is to start with that business use case and demonstrate a deep understanding of that business use case regardless of the role. So my software engineers all have experience as either business owners, entrepreneurs, project leads, team leads that had a P&L responsibility. Everyone, down to my copywriters, has had a P&L responsibility. So we understand the business use case and we understand what it's going to mean when it actually gets delivered, as opposed to, hey, we'd love for you to come back if you haven't.
So it's interesting because as I'm hearing you talk about all this, I mean, you clearly have this business entrepreneur mind for what it is and where you're going. Do you have a long-term plan for the company? I mean, do you see it continuing to grow?
I was just talking about this the other day with my CTO. Yes, we do. The short answer is we know that quality is not scaling. It's just not. You reach a cap. You do. So the truth becomes, well, how do you take advantage of the most quality you can within the window of time you can? And that starts with a couple of different things. The natural extension for someone like us is to build a fund, right? And to start investing in things ourselves along with our team members and to build a fund that we can support these development projects with and partner with and be a part of some of these rides that we're a part of. That's one natural extension that we're considering. Would be a smart thing to do, would be easy. In fact, we're looking at acquiring some companies that are outside of the software teams and service staff augmentation custom software world for that specific purpose. But what we're also doing is layering in a lot of different options in co-marketing, co-branding with other teams that have expertise that we don't. Just because I can build you a custom ERP doesn't mean I'm an ERP expert.
Right.
I partner with the world's number one Odoo expert if someone's going to do something on Odoo. Right? It's why am I going to reinvent the wheel that someone else already has figured out? There are certain things that we're just not going to dabble in. But where we are going to dabble in are the places that are going to be core to the business that aren't going to be necessarily the reporting metrics. It's going to be the stuff that's going to be helping your team operate at a higher level and make better decisions. So for us, it really comes down to, I'm never going to run out of problems to solve, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to come down to, how are we going to keep attracting the right sorts of people that resonate with this messaging that we're putting out there? And that's ultimately, I think, where we're going to hit the bottom, is because I can only serve X number of people in a given year, regardless of headcount. So if we start getting more selective about the kinds of projects, eventually what I think CodingIT is going to be long-term is a marketplace. Not just a marketplace, and I'm not talking about recruiting and marketing talent or anything like that. What I'm talking about is a marketplace of ideas, where I think that we could turn this into a place for software engineers to not just have a career, but also have the ability to unfurl their own ideas upon the world, and maybe CodingIT bringing the bridge to that, because we're really good at the business part of the software. And that's where we tend to be the most effective. So we're exploring some different ideas and regarding how we can make use of this fantastic talent that we have attained over the years, and looking to keep growing and keep them motivated outside of working on projects. And we think that this may be an interesting way of doing that. This is sort of creating a small little piece of CodingIT that's going to be an incubator hub for our own internal talent to get on out there and do their own thing.
So to be able to, do what you've done, make the changes you've made in your career, to be able to start and grow a company like this, where did you get your mentorship? Who's guided you along the way? Because I'm a real big believer that very few of us wake up and we're brilliant about what it is we're doing. Somewhere along the line, we get some guidance.
I mean, there have been several. Some that come to mind, top of mind. One being a gentleman here locally in Austin, actually, Dick Singer, former executive in international business, very active in the Vistage community.
He's one of the Vistage chairs here in Austin.
Yeah. Dick's great. Been a fantastic resource for me in terms of introductions and just general knowledge about higher level international business stuff. Someone actually, when I left Cars, when I left Enterprise, a gentleman who offered me a job when I left happened to be a former client, Angus Davis with ADI. He emboldened me to really test some of my ideas about sales theory, growing channel sales markets, developing dealer networks and channel sales awards and stuff like that. That really, really, really gave me a leg up long term. He was able to entrust me with his business, and I'm forever grateful for that. And then the rest of it is, I'm the son of an immigrant who's married to an immigrant whose business partner is an immigrant. I love immigrant success stories. And in this tough moment, when it comes to these sorts of things, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that my mother, immigrant from Cuba, came here in the 60s. The grit and determination needed to uproot yourself is not something that I think that the average person truly hears. But as someone who's a product of that success story, I can tell you that this is what you get on the other side if it's done kind of okay. I'm not great, but I'm not bad.
But I definitely think I've interviewed several on this show and other interviews that I've done, and then just being an observer of humanity, the immigrants work really hard and they get real scrappy and figure out how to do things, and people are there's a lot, I don't want to get political, there's a lot of people who talk about different things, but this country was built by scrappy immigrants. My grandfather came here in 1900, and the story about my grandfather, we'll digress just a little bit. It's my show. It's my show. I've done a lot of research on this because I just got dual citizenship with Ireland, because both of my maternal grandparents were born in Ireland. I knew my whole life that since, the 1950s, although before I was born, Ireland has offered guaranteed citizenship to the children and grandchildren of people born on the island. And I knew this, and I'm the youngest of 26 grandchildren. Nobody ever did it. And so I took it on as a project 2 years ago, and about 10 months ago, I got my citizenship. 9 months ago, I got my citizenship. So I'm now one of those two passport kind of guys. And my grandfather was 16 years old. Both of his parents died within 6 months of each other. And he had siblings, 3 or 4 of them, ranging down to age 4. And an older brother who was 4 years older, who was living in the United States. And he sent, I don't know what you do back then, a telegram to his brother saying, now dad's gone too. And the brother said, sell everything the family owns, get on a boat, come to New York, get on a train, come to Chicago, and we'll figure it out. And at 16 years old, my grandfather did that. And when he got there, his brother was newly married. They said, we'll take on the kids. You're 16, get a job, find a place to live. I mean, they didn't kick him out. He was still part of the family, but he had to support himself. And he, had an 8th grade education, and he did. And he did a lot of odd jobs. He met my grandmother. They moved a couple times. They ended up in California. He got his high school diploma, and he became a fireman and ended up being a captain in the Los Angeles Fire Department. And meanwhile, my grandmother did a bunch of entrepreneurial stuff. She, they owned a restaurant for a while. She did a bunch of stuff. And, they didn't get rich, but their goal was to have a good life. I think my grandparents, I didn't know them very well. I was a late life child, so there was too big of a gap. My grandfather died when I was 6 months old. My grandmother died when I was in 1st grade, but they had a good life. And my grandfather wanted to see his children and grandchildren, and subsequently now great-grandchildren, have a better life. And I remember being teary-eyed when my daughter graduated from Dartmouth, because it was like, wow, my grandfather took that risk and built that life. And now you've got, his great-grandchild graduating from an Ivy League school. That happens in America. So
yeah, this is something that, regardless of whether the listeners believe me or not, this is still a country whereby you can still achieve. I'm living proof of it. Every day I wake up. So I firmly believe that opportunity isn't lost on me, nor it will be lost on my daughter. Right? It's the importance of my wife is from the Philippines. She's not from Manila or a very fancy part of the Philippines. So it's very important for me that people understand that this world that we inhabit, especially in a culture like Austin, where there is so much abundance. Like, let's be clear, we're very fortunate. Yes, we can opine about deal flow. We can opine about cash reserves. We can opine about a lot of things. But genuinely, the climate here in Austin is one whereby it is more collaborative, it is more giving than any other one I've ever been a part of. And this is someone who's lived in 12 cities.
Well, and it is true that we're very fortunate here that we have very few negatives. I mean, the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago tried to point them all out in one article. And, people don't like it here because it's hot. Well, it's been hot here for hundreds of years. People don't like it because we have traffic. Well, I don't know a lot of big cities that don't have traffic. So when you look at our negatives, they pretty much match a lot of other places, and our positives far outseed. And this is a great transition into, you've been here in Austin for 9 years. You're building your business here in Austin. You know a lot of people in Austin. You participate in the community. You help lead. You help guide. You help mentor. Where do you think Austin as a tech community, or as a community as a whole, we talk about the fact we have a lot going for us, but where do you think we really are and where are we going?
Where we are today is struggling to understand what we want to be when we grow up. I mean, we're full of preteen angst, man. Like that's what it feels like. And I don't mean that like in a stymieing way or in a stifling way. I mean that in a very like trepidatious, nervous, anxiety sort of way. We're a city of two minds. We have the strong entrepreneurial spirit, the startup culture that is very, 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 very ingrained to Central Austin's core, especially the business climate in the tech sector. But we also have this large behemoth of data and hardware with NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, IBM, et cetera, that has been classically here. And we're at odds with these sorts of things, and we don't know really what we want to be yet. I think that's why I'm excited to be in Austin and why Austin's exciting.
It's interesting because you say we got to figure out where we're going. The one thing I tell everybody, and not a lot of people say this, and not a lot of people publicly agree with me, but privately they do. Austin's in 12th grade on its way to a PhD. So if you remember 12th grade, you think you're the big man on campus. You think you've arrived. You think you're on top. And a couple of years later, you look back and go, oh, wow, that really wasn't much. We have a long way to go. I think in the world of being a tech hub or an innovation center, whatever you want to call it, Austin's fortunate. We got out ahead of all these other cities. I mean, you got the Valley in New York and Boston, LA. They're all a little bit different. But when you look at these scrappy tech hub cities that are really starting to do a lot, we have a 10 or 15-year jump on all of them. But we can't believe, we don't like bad press, but we can't believe the good press because we haven't arrived, right? I mean, we brag that we're number 4 in venture funding, but when number 1 is $38 billion and number 4 is just under $4 billion, that's not really fourth. There's a lot going on with that big of a delta. And so I just tell everybody, look, we're halfway up the mountain. We have to stay scrappy. We have to still stay one community. We have to be one Austin. We can't have the nonprofits competing. That's why the Chamber and ourselves and Austin Women in Technology and a whole list, we're sort of throwing around the term like one Austin. How do we promote each other and not step on each other? And at the same time, allow each other to have the tables that we have so people can pull those up, because an ecosystem needs a lot of people in the community with voices that can be heard. And if everybody's competing and trying to shut everybody else down, it doesn't work. So we're really trying, as the nonprofit community and the business nonprofits, to really say, how can we work together better than we ever have? And I think that matters.
I do too. I've been a part of other cities' economic development teams, divisions, nonprofits, whatever catch-all term you want to apply to that. But we're a little bit more combative, and it was a little bit more challenging to get certain ideas across the table because, that helps them more than it helps us, and everyone wanted to win. That is not true at all here, which is refreshing and part of the reason why I say. But also, genuinely, to elaborate on where I think it's going, honestly, right now, I think that Austin needs to have to continue to be the city of two minds, because we need these success stories in entrepreneurship to show that it's possible. We need them, and not just the classics that get shown on the logos that pop to mind when I say that, but specifically, we need, as a part of every tech wave, in my opinion, this AI wave. We're going to have AI companies as a part of this. We already do. Data infrastructure, we already have companies as a part of this. We already do. Cloud infrastructure, we already do. However, what we don't have is one singular vision as to what does this mean for the city. We know what this means for the individual companies or the success or failure they're in. But in my opinion, what we should be doing as a collective in terms of a business climate in Austin is understanding what are the marquee things that we have genuinely in Austin. We have a lot of talent here, we do. But it's a lot of professional services. 60% of the Austin is employed by just their thoughts or their words. Very few doers, actually, in this city, if you look at it. But that being said, it's a fantastic opportunity for us to be whatever the heck we want. And I think that we need this duality. I think we need the startups that are building this leading edge. And that in turn is going to service or keep in check the Goliaths that we have here, the Googles, the Fangs, etc.
And I'll add to that, because I think, we've done so well, Capital Factory and others have done so well at making us this startup hub with this entrepreneurial mind. And then Opportunity Austin has done such a great job of getting these big brands to either put their headquarters here or move big offices here. But the thing we have to pay attention to is maybe this third mind, and that is what's in the middle. Because less than 1% are around. I guess a little over 1% of startups are going to be around 3 years after they get started. So that's great, but you're not going to have, one or two out of 100 that are going to make it beyond anywhere. And the big companies are there. And the ones that weren't founded here, nice to have an office, but their heart isn't necessarily, their soul isn't Austin.
Yeah.
But we have about 300 companies in Austin that have grown out of the startup stage. And we don't pay a lot of attention to them until they become the next unicorn. And I think from the startups to the big companies, we have to focus on that growth-oriented middle and find ways to do it. That's why the Austin Technology Council, our July breakfast on July 22nd, is going to be strategies for growth. And we're going to have a panel of people who've had companies that have been around 3, 4, 5, 10 years that either funded, bootstrapped, et cetera, that can talk about, what do you do when you get out of, Diane and Bobby with grandma's money and an idea and get past that Series A? What do you do when you have a product? How do you continue to grow and be stable? And kind of along the lines of what we talked about when you were talking about your company. How do you get there? And then how do you look for the future? And I think that the more as a city we can cultivate those small and mid-sized growth companies, the more we're going to be able to build more unicorns out of Austin, because I think we need that.
I think you may have accidentally stumbled upon the city's next catchphrase for the tech sector, which is Austin, the city to scale in.
Wow. The city to scale in. I'm going to own that as of tomorrow.
Yeah, you're fine. It's not recorded or anything. No, for real. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I'm of the same mind, the same ethos. Genuinely. Middle sector is what allows for security in America, and we don't have enough of it in Austin that's active.
Yeah,
right. We don't.
And we have a history. We have a history of those companies getting bought either before they go public or after they go public. And when they get bought by someone whose headquarters is somewhere else, the law firm loses, the accounting firm loses, that professional services thing, because the decisions are being made in another city. So we need to grow and keep more of those unicorns.
No, agreed. Yeah, no, and I love to have a deeper conversation about what that means for the city, because I think that one of the things that makes it truly unique, outside of some of the challenges that exist when it comes to getting attention and understanding that this is a very busy place, there are a lot of people grabbing for the same attention that you're asking for. Once you can get past that part of it, if you can genuinely show traction, if you can genuinely show utility, there is no other place in the world that's going to get behind you faster than this city. I've seen it myself.
Yep.
I've been a part of it.
Yep.
I was a part of 5 Stars, which grew in the Austin market from 0 accounts to over 400 accounts. I was a part of it with other companies that I've been a part of. The city will embrace it. It just has to be there.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir. That's what we're trying to do with ATC. We're trying to get that community support so that we can help be one of those things that helps stir and support those growth companies when they get there. Because this is the city to scale in. Last
it looked great on a t-shirt and a bumper sticker, man. Just give me the writing credit. That's all.
There you go. I already have the t-shirt ordered. I don't know what you're talking about. Any last words?
Man, honestly, it's been a lot of fun. Love to do it again, and always happy to entertain these conversations around the city and what this ecosystem is about, because genuinely it is one of the more exciting times to be in it. Regardless of someone's feelings of the words artificial intelligence, it has certainly made an impact. And that's not going to change in the foreseeable future.
Nice. Well, Cyril Allgeier from CodingIT, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. Why would we do the show if we didn't have an audience? But we're trying to grow it. So make sure you forward this episode to everyone you've ever met who works in tech. That's not a big ask. Just everyone you've ever met, because we're trying to get more listeners every single week. Please, if you have an idea of somebody who leads a company here in Austin who would be a great guest, reach out to me at tom@austintechnologycouncil.org. That's Tom, THOM, austintechnologycouncil.org. That's a lot of characters to type, but that's what you got. And let us know who would be another good guest. We'll be back next week with somebody just as interesting as Cyril. I know you're thinking, how is that possible? But we always seem to pull it off. Thank you for listening to Austin Tech Connect.